Welcome to a lecture about Hypatia and the Cypria. Now, it's important to distinguish between Hypatia, who was a person, and the Cypria, which is the precursor to the Iliad and later, of course, the Odyssey. So, back in the day, there was this city called Alexandria, and Hypatia lived in Alexandria. Alexandria was built by Alexander the Great because he really liked to name things after himself in 331 BC. One of the things about Alexander the Great is he was a curator of knowledge from ancient Greece. He himself was Macedonian, but he was obsessed with Greek culture, readings, plays, everything that had to do with being Greek, including Greek goddesses. He made, while he conquered the world, his teacher, who was Aristotle, come with him and spend time while conquering the world, still learning about the ancient Greeks. When he built Alexandria, he made it as a city center for all things Greek, and in the very center was the Library of Alexandria. Now, unfortunately, the Library of Alexandria burned down, and with it, 500,000 scrolls are lost. However, before that happened, we had this woman named Hypatia who came along to save the day. So she lived in Alexandria and was the last known member of the Library of Alexandria, where 500,000 scrolls were kept, all having to do with ancient Greek culture. Theon, her father, was technically the last known member because women weren't allowed to do anything, because why would we ever be allowed to do anything? And he was the curator of this library. Now, Hypatia was born, of course, female, in 370. She was born to a father who valued education and therefore was one of the first women in recorded history to study and teach math, astronomy, philosophy. She was a Neoplatonic school teacher. She never married and was really married to what she did and the work. She was pagan by declaration, which means that she believed in the Greek gods and goddesses versus being Christian. She didn't trust the church as something that was new, and she worried about what was going to happen to the library. She started one by one sneaking scrolls out of the library. Her one saving grace during this time was Orestes. Now, Orestes is Alexandria's governor. He is Christian, and he liked her. He liked her, not just liked her as a friend, and tried to court her. To little success. They ended up being friends, but nothing more than that. But because he found her to be such an interesting human being, he did spend a lot of time protecting her against Cyril. Cyril was the head of the Christian faith, and he wanted to become friends with Orestes. Hypatia was not about that and kept saying, don't do it. This is not the kind of person you want to be spending your time with and aligning yourself with. He was not the best person. He actually led a crowd to loot the homes and temples of expelled Jews who had come into Egypt during this time. And he unsuccessfully attempted to assassinate Orestes after it was clear that Orestes didn't want to align himself with him. So Cyril goes to Peter the Lector, who was in charge of many things during this time. He actually ended up leading a mob who killed Hypatia. And she was killed somewhere between 415 and 416, but not before saving many things. So the Cypria was one of the things that she saved, and we know only fragments of it still survive to this day, but the fragments that we have tell the story of why the Iliad started. And now I'm going to let past Mrs. McBride tell you all about it.
Welcome to the Cypria. Remember, the Cypria is the first part of the series that we're going to be talking about, and it starts with Troy and with Hector, Paris, and Cassandra. Now, Cassandra had visions of the future. When Paris was born, Cassandra had a vision that he was going to be the downfall of Troy. Therefore, his father, King Priam, sent him away to live as a shepherd. As Paris grew up, he knew nothing really of his old life, until one day 3 women came around and asked him who was the most beautiful. These 3 women were Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, and each offered him something that he would like. Hera offered him power, Athena offered him wisdom, and Aphrodite offered love. Now, Paris is going to choose Aphrodite as being the most beautiful and chooses love. And it's the love of Helen of Sparta because she is the most beautiful woman in all of Greece. Paris is eventually welcomed back to Troy by his father, and he and his brother become ambassadors to other city-states. They get on a boat and they go to Sparta in order to make friends with Agamemnon, Menelaus, and of course, Helen. When Paris and Helen meet, they magically fall in love because Aphrodite promised it would be so. So they decide that they are going to run away together, and they are going to run away back to Troy. So in the middle of the night, they sail back with money, resources, and riches, all from Sparta taken back to Troy.